What's going on, all you gamers? Today we're jumping into a bit more Wo Long, and I'm going to be showing you one of the best full metal builds that you can make in the game for absolutely decimating your enemies. So if you want to destroy bosses fast and have a lot of fun whilst you do it, then stay tuned. That's coming up next. Welcome back everybody. Today we're back with a bit of Wo Long. I've been putting this build together for a little while and I finally had the last drop I needed. Now we've assembled it and it absolutely destroys everything. It's a very fun build. It's very much based around going full metal. I keep wanting to say full metal alchemist, but yeah, if metal's the way you want to go, then this guide's definitely worth watching. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to chuck on a little bit of gameplay, show you roughly what this build's about, and just how fun it can be. This is a build that I would say is well worth having in your arsenal, even if you just want it stuck to one of your loadout slots in order to take on some of the tougher bosses and such. Right, so hopefully from that footage you can see that this is a lot of fun to play. I've tried to give you a bit of versatility, so you've got a bit of range, you've got a way to spirit break, you've got a lot of close range damage. It's just a very fun setup in total. Plus the damage over time effect really helps you out on some of those bosses. Now if I jump over to my stats quick, on this one I've only got 20 in wood virtue, but ultimately you will be wanting to put 30 in. It's up to you how you go about things. If you want to leave it to a little bit later game or onto your new game plus you can, but being able to use that restore wizardry can really help you out on some of those tricky bosses. So eventually you're going to want 30 in wood. After that you're going to want 22 in your earth. This is going to make it so that your proportion of your max weight is absolutely ideal and you're not going to go into that fat rolling. And lastly, everything you can, sink the rest into your metal virtue. I've got 54 currently. If you want to take 10 out to put into the wood to make that 30, you very well could. I was going for a little bit of extra damage on my last few boss fights. But yeah, if you tally it all up and you've hit max level, so 150, you're going to have 96 in your metal, you're going to have 22 in your earth, 1 in water, 1 in fire, and then 30 in your wood. And that's going to be the ideal setup, giving you a lot of opportunity for damage, but the flexibility to move your spells around. Now jumping over to our wizardries, and what I tend to do at the very start of the map is have a completely different setup to when I'm at the end with a much higher morale, because otherwise we won't be able to use that ultimate setup. So at the very start you're going to be using Spirit Fervour. This is going to allow you to get your health back, especially when you pop it before going into your fatal strikes. Your Venomous Discharge is going to be what you're doing for a bit of damage over time. It's going to help you dwindle down enemies' health, especially if there's a few of them. Just over from here and we've got Enhanced Defense. This is going to give you roughly 11% extra mitigation, and it also means you don't flinch, so it can really help us out so we're not taking a beating with our normal standard attacks and such. And just down from here, Molten Calamity Thorn, just good all the way through the game, well worth having on whenever you can manage to activate it. Now once you've leveled up your morale a bit, I'd say probably around about 12 to 15, and definitely for your boss you'll want to switch over to this. You're going to have Venom Snare. This is going to be your long range, it's going to help dwindle down their spirit bar, it's also going to do damage over time, and it's going to be able to add a few effects that we've got going on in our build. Over to Life Wither, this is going to give you extra damage on them, meaning you can pull off some really big hits. Of course we are going for a kind of Toxin metal build, so Toxin weapon works perfectly. Chuck this on and you're going to do a lot of extra damage when you're going in with your standard sword attacks, or of course when you're breaking their spirit because you're using the sword special move. And lastly we've got Molten Calamity Thorn. This one is going to be the icing on the cake. Very close range, ridiculously so, but it does so much damage. Use this straight after a finisher and it's going to be like you're doubling up on damage, but even more so because I've seen this hit well upwards of 2k damage without a perfect setup. Lastly, if you are struggling on any bosses, because some of them, especially later on in the game or New Game Plus, hit ridiculously hard, swap one of these out, whichever one you feel you're not using the most depending on the boss, and chuck in your perfect restore all. This will help you to negate one of the big hits. It can really save your life in those tough situations and is well worth having on the bar for any of the trickier bosses. Now going over to the equipment, and just one of my favourite weapons in the game. I probably learnt about this a little bit later than everyone else because I was doing other stuff, but the Guardian Blade is very good. Does some nice damage, but it's amazing at breaking spirit parts. Its special effect, Thunderous Impact, is one of the top effects in the game, definitely worth having. And that's where you saw me kind of steamroll into an enemy and dwindle down their spirit bar, allowing for those fatal strikes very easy. Because you go into the fatal strike animation, we can do that and then follow it up with our Calamity Thorn doing additional damage. The embedding that I've put on this is spirit damage bonus based off our toxin attack. We've got quite high toxin attack, so this one helps us a lot. Toxin attack power and enemy status effect accumulation. Over from here, and the only reason we've got this on, we need it as part of the setup that we're going with because we want to activate that Hero Beyond the Age bonus effect from our set. This is going to be Cao Sword, and obviously he is one of your followers, so just rank him up to oath level 10 and you'll be able to apply this setup. Remember, the embedments and such on your secondary don't matter, it's only when you switch to it. We're not going to be using this too much, but if you want to, spec into it if you enjoy using that Dawning Sky. Just down from here, I almost never go with any kind of range, so it's completely up to you, whatever you want to chuck on here. This one again doesn't affect your overall build stats, so just put in whatever your preference is here. Down from here, and our first piece of armour is going to be the Unscrupulous Hero Crown. I've got damage amplification on enemy upon wizardry. This is an amazing one to have on this build because it really helps with damage and it works hand in hand with our Calamity Thorn wizardry. Toxin attack power, poison accumulation on enemies and wizardry spell damage are all perfect on this. Over from here, and we've got Unscrupulous Hero Armour. I've got even more poison accumulation on enemy build up, toxin attack power, wizardry spell damage and HP. HP or a little bit of minus damage to yourself with damage mitigation I found to be the best, just for helping with your survivability. Over from here we've got the Unscrupulous Hero Gauntlets, toxin attack power, poison accumulation on enemies, wizardry spell damage and HP again. And finally for the Greaves we've got poison accumulation on enemies, toxin attack power, wizardry spell damage and HP. Going over to our accessories, and I do not have anywhere near the top end ones of this, so you will definitely be able to do better. Just try to get the kind of stats we were going for with our other armour pieces. This one's got toxin attack power, so that's quite good, but the rest of these are not ideal. Just grab the best accessories you can. These are some of the toughest items to get hold of, where you can't actually change their embedments. You do however need to have at least a brief explanation of Sun Tzu on in order to get that set piece bonus. Again, I've got from my last one, Warfare Classics, it's got a bit of toxin damage, bit of HP and toxin attack power. So overall this one is actually better than the one on the left here. Just down from here to the usable items, obviously you've got your dragon cure pots, but whenever you can, make sure you've got some of these as well, and that's going to be your dragon's cure powder. If you don't know about these, you're missing out. Honestly, they make the game so much more manageable. I've got a guide on how to beat Lu Bu. It shows you how to get hold of these as well. So if any of you are struggling with the game and are terrible at parrying like I am, then these are an absolute blessing. Finally, for our setup, you've got one of two choices here really. The metal one is going to be probably our best bet with the Divine Beast Favour of Tenge, I'm going to say. Now, I probably butchered that pronunciation, but this one is going to give you a nice bit of spirit damage, which is what we're all about, enemy status effect accumulation and wizardry spell damage. Pop this, make sure you get on a boss, try to make sure he's not moving because that's really going to help out. Then go in with your sword art if you can, get him into Fatal Strike animation, do your Fatal Strike, hit him with your Wither, then hit him with your Calamity, and you will have absolutely butchered his health bar. Or the other Divine Beast that can work quite well is Behu, which again I'm probably mispronouncing, but this one's really nice, helps a bit with your spirit consumption, does a bit more spirit damage, the negative effect duration is up, and you've got some damage amplification upon Fatal Strike. So those two are definitely the best in my eyes. The Thunderous Impact from the Guardian Blade is amazing for spirit dwindling, but do remember you are still going to have to parry, choose your opportunities, don't just spam it in abundance, otherwise you will get caught out every once in a while. But overall I found this could take on pretty much all of the toughest bosses and if you were struggling, say there was one that was really resistant to poison, you'd probably just have to chuck a little bit of lightning effect, maybe on your blade, in order to take him down a little bit. But lastly, going over to our set bonus, because we've got all 6 pieces on of the Hero Beyond the Age, you now get morale rank points gain, which is quite nice, marking flag detection, slow on enemy upon martial arts, so that's why we're going to be using that skill a lot. It's going to apply slow. Remember, we're trying to build up our statuses, we're trying to build up their debuffs, and then we're going to be using that Calamity Thorn in order to give us more damage from it. And again, spirit vulnerability on enemy upon martial art. So now when we use our skill from our sword, you're going to put 2 debuffs on them with these, then we're going to be hitting them with poison when we're hitting them with our spells, as well as a bit of extra damage if we're doing that with her. Follow that with Calamity and watch the boss's health pop. Right, hopefully that's helped a few of you guys and girls out, and I haven't taken too long, but as always, there'll be a lot more content from me. Take care, I'll see you on next day.